Hello, and welcome to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, the owner of Meraki Media Management. The End in Mind is a place where we come to share stories, tips, and strategies of many entrepreneurs, creatives, business owners, and just some people that aren't willing to live the traditional lifestyle. We talk about how to live outside of the box today and how to incorporate what really is important in your life to keep that end goal always in mind. Again, if you would like to reach out to me in any type of way, you can find me on Instagram at Meraki_media_management, and I hope to hear from you all soon. Thanks so much and enjoy our show. Okay, so part 2 on setting boundaries is our next podcast episode, and I'm so incredibly passionate about this topic. As I've hit 30, I have realized how important boundaries are, like in all areas of my life. So on today's podcast episode, we may not only be talking about professional boundaries, because a lot of my boundaries I had to set in my personal life, and then I was able to set them in my work life. And this has taken me years to figure out, and I would say I'm definitely still in the thick of figuring out different boundaries in different areas of my life, to be very honest. So back in 2020, when I was first introduced to this idea of boundaries, like I shared in episode 1, I thought that I was always good at that. I thought that I had a clear view of like what I was able to take on and what I wasn't able to take on. And it became very clear to me, like the more personal work that I was doing, that was actually the complete opposite of who I was embodying and how I was acting. I was always doing things to please other people, which I still struggle with on a daily basis. So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you feel the same way, know you're not alone. Know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and the more that you set boundaries, which I'm going to share some stories here, the more natural it will start to feel, because in the beginning, it was so uncomfortable for me. So, what do I mean when like not even knowing what a boundary is? Like when I was introduced to this, I had no clue that, again, I was just like almost every single thing I was doing, especially in my job, but like also in my personal life, was to make other people happy, and very rarely to make myself happy. Even a part of starting my company was to like help other business owners, right? Like I was doing it for myself, but I was really also doing it for the potential that I saw in so many other small businesses that like weren't reaching the people that they wanted to reach. Even that, as an example, right, was like not totally 100% for myself. So it's funny looking back and thinking about that and like where I was at that time in my life. However, I digress. So as I'm walking through this with my therapist, we're pretty new to getting to know each other at this time. And she's asking me like, what do you do for fun? And I start rattling off everything that I do for work. And she said, that's work. That's not fun. And I was like, I don't even know. I don't even know what I really do for fun, that like I just like to do myself and like for no one else, right? Not for any type of outcome, for just pure joy. And I had to go back to like think about the things that I loved when I was little, because that was the only thing that I could think of, right? To go back to like this little version of myself and things that I loved to do. When I was young, I grew up in a pretty rural part of Pennsylvania. We were about 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia at that time. A lot of the suburbs where I live were not nearly as built up as they are now. So my parents had built a new home we lived in the woods and I loved it. I spent a lot of my time every day after school in the woods. I would spend all of my days in the woods if I wasn't with my Aunt Cindy, who was a teacher who had off on the summers. My grandparents had a pool, which was really close to my parents' house. My aunt also lived across the street. So we did a lot of things that were offline, right? There wasn't the internet as wildly as it is today. We spent a lot of time crafting. I love to craft. We used to make things like dream catchers and dried flower photos to hang on the wall. And we used to draw, we used to write poems, very creative family lifestyle I grew up in. And when I would be spending time in the woods, I'd be like hunting for treasure or collecting rocks, right? Like that was just what brought me a lot of joy as a child, really, really grounded me. And that's why now, today in my adulthood, unfortunately, where I live, I do not have like a wooded area or a yard, but we lived in proximity to a lot of walking trails. So I do my best to go for a walk outside at least 5 times a week. Sometimes that's on the weekends, like depending on the weather. And if Bailey can come, of course. I also live right near a beautiful river, and whenever I get a chance, I will go in the river. Bailey loves to go in the river. If you guys don't know who Bailey is, she is my adorable 6-year-old puppy. Yes, she is still a puppy. She's the cutest thing ever. And we love to treasure hunt together, and we explore different walking paths with my husband when he can come too. It's always just so nice and such a great reset. Now, when we eventually do have a large backyard, like I want to build a garden, right, and get my hands dirty, because that's something that I am really missing in my life, and it's something I want to continue to call in. I have a lot of plants in my home here that I tend to and take care of. So anyhow, I'm sharing all of this because if you are in the same boat and you're like, I literally have no clue what brings me joy, like outside of working, right? At this time in my life, when she was asking me these questions, I was so incredibly focused on money that everything else in my life, like if money wasn't flowing constantly or consistently, I felt less than, right? I was like tying all of my identity to money and how money was showing up in my life. To even think about like going outside and spending my day or spending even like 10 to 15 minutes on a walk with my dog at this point in 2020 was like when my business was starting to kick back into gear. And it felt like I didn't even have that time in the day. Like at this point in my life, I was having a hard time pulling myself away from the computer to go to the bathroom. Like if you are an entrepreneur and you've been in a really hectic season of business, you will probably relate to that. And when you create this scarcity right through the time that you're giving, like behind the computer, it can really mess with your psyche and also mess with what you think's most important in life. And that was a really difficult, challenging time for me. I had a lot of other things going on in my life as well, and work and my time was like the only thing, I'm using air quotes, I felt like I could control, right? It was an illusion. So I had to do a lot of reflecting to like get back to that boundary setting of, why am I working myself to the bone, right? If I run my own company, and why have I created this jail cell? Like if you've been listening to the show for a long time, you'll probably recall me using words like that in early episodes when we launched the show, because that was really what I had done. And I wasn't keeping the end in mind, like the goal of why I started this company in mind. I was thinking about money, right? And like the outcome that I wanted to control of the business, not just letting the business unfold as the beauty that it could be if I was setting healthier boundaries, honestly. The best way for me to describe not setting boundaries is when, like, I've worked with a lot of one-on-one clients that have experienced things around these stories that I'm sharing in this four-part episode series. And they have said similar things to me, like, I feel like I have to work because if I'm not working, then I'm not closer to getting clients, right? And like, I have to be focused on it at all times because where energy flows, right? Like, outcomes come, and I just have to keep putting all my energy towards this. And yes, right, there's a truth to that. And there's also balance. Like, I think a lot of the coaches online, bless their hearts, healers, therapists, like people that share these concepts in a 30-second video, they are not able to articulate everything else, right? Like, that's just one short, quick 30 seconds of a tip or a strategy. It's not the full story. So yes, you want to be able to harness where your energy is going, but it doesn't mean that your energy should only be going towards work and your business. Your energy has to be harnessed so that you can properly allocate it to the areas of your life. And sometimes certain areas in your life need it more. So the best analogy for this is, if we are sitting there watching our business, watching our bank accounts, watching our money, watching the website, right? Constantly working on the business, giving no time off. It's the perfect equivalent to waiting for water to boil, right? And just standing over that pot of water and waiting for it to boil versus walking away for, 2 minutes, finishing the dishes, and then coming back, right? And the water's already boiling. Utilizing your time well and knowing how to funnel your energy was what boundaries started to make me think about the most. And it totally changed my life the more that I got into this. So in part 3, I'm going to share a little bit how boundaries have helped me today, knowing that I learned a lot of these strategies, going back to 2020. Obviously, 6 years later, I'm still growing and expanding, but I want to share with you all, like, specifically how this shows up today. The final thing that I want to leave with you all on this specific episode, I was talking a lot about, like, spending time outside and doing things that I love again, because when you start to set boundaries, it can feel like you have a void, like, in your life, in your time. It can feel like a black hole that you just want to fill it with something. And if you're going to fill that time, I highly recommend filling that time with something that you love, that you do specifically just for you. So if you don't know what those things are, reflect back to that childhood time that I mentioned. What brings you joy? A lot of what I already shared, like, I love to craft. I love to do puzzles. I love to talk to you guys. So this is like a form of expression for me. Audio has worked better for me recently than writing. So this has kind of been like my old writing outlet audibly. I love to go for drives. I love to listen to podcasts, but not always like productive work podcasts, like romance novels, audiobooks, right? Like stuff that I don't always feel like I'm constantly having to work on myself for. Stuff that can be fun and whimsical again. I actually really love making things like bone broths, and I like cooking certain things. I make this like really good casserole that I love. So after a long day, like sometimes that's the only thing I want to be doing. I love to organize my closet. I'm an only child, so I love to like move furniture around. That was always something I did as a kid, and I love to do that today too. I love to take hot baths, love to light a candle. Absolutely obsessed with pulling runes and with some angel cards and just giving myself time to be myself outside of being a CEO, right? And this is how I filled that void of time when I feel like I have to be doing something. I also love watching reality TV. So sometimes you may think like, oh my gosh, well, that shouldn't be a part of my love list because that's bad for me, right? Whatever society tells us that's bad for us, that's bad for our brain, that influences us badly. Use your own discretion, right? How do you feel when you're watching those shows? A lot of the times I like to have it on in the background. Everybody's different. So these are just examples. But yeah, I encourage you to go back and look at the things that you loved as a child if you don't know where to start with your love list, because that was a great compass and honestly a really good reminder of things that I forgot to do that I absolutely love. So thank you all so much for being here today with me and discovering more about boundaries together, because every time I record this podcast, I always learn something about myself. So thank you as always for holding this space for me. And I will see you guys over in part 3. Thank you so much for listening to The End in Mind. I would like to remind you all, if you haven't yet reached out to me on Instagram, we are at Meraki_media_management. It will be in our show notes as well. If you would like to reach out to me, we always offer free coaching through Instagram based around our Instagram training and our business Instagram practices. If you need any type of support, please do not hesitate to reach out to me there. And we also offer several different types of consulting and training packages if you're looking for a little bit more in-depth tips. So thank you all for listening in, and of course I want you all to keep the end in mind as you continue with your day and or work week. Have a great week, and I will see you all next time.